Good evening. Tonight on World News, from an extraordinary claim by Donald Trump declaring himself Venezuela's acting president to renewed American pressure over Greenland that's rattling Europe and NATO. And in the Middle East, Iran is warning of retaliation even as bloodshed mounts on its streets. This is World News. Let's begin. The line between political theater and diplomatic provocation appears to be blurring. Donald Trump has now proclaimed himself the acting president of Venezuela, a claim posted online in the style of an edited Wikipedia entry, complete with an official portrait and fabricated tenure details. There is no international recognition, there is no legal standing, and Wikipedia itself does not list Trump in any Venezuelan role. But the message is unmistakable and destabilizing. Here's more.
A stunning declaration rocking global diplomacy. U.S. President Donald Trump has posted a digitally altered image declaring himself the acting president of Venezuela, just days after Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro was captured by U.S. forces in a dramatic military operation. The image, shared on Truth Social and styled like a Wikipedia page, shows Trump's official portrait with the title Acting President of Venezuela, a claim with no official legitimacy but massive international fallout. This comes in the wake of a controversial U.S. military action in early January that led to the apprehension of Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores, sparking heated debate over legality, sovereignty, and international law. Despite Trump's extraordinary claim, Venezuela's leadership transition follows its own laws. The Supreme Tribunal of Justice named Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as acting president under constitutional succession. After the operation, Trump said the U.S. would run Venezuela during the transition to get the oil flowing, and then declared America was in charge, comments that have fueled diplomatic firestorms. But even within his own government, messages are mixed, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio clarifying the U.S. does not plan to directly administer Venezuela, despite the provocative imagery and rhetoric. Trump didn't stop there, posting another tongue-in-cheek claim that Senator Marco Rubio is the president of Cuba, with the quip, "Sounds good to me," underscoring the escalation in Latin America rhetoric. And on the legal front, Maduro now faces federal charges in the U.S., pleading not guilty while asserting his capture violated international law, a dramatic legal battle unfolding far from Caracas. As questions mount over legitimacy, international law, and the future of Venezuela's government, Trump's bold social media post may be remembered as one of the most unusual assertions of presidential authority in modern history.
The Trump administration is once again asserting that the United States must control Greenland, framing it as a matter of national security and warning it will act whether they like it or not. The stance has placed Europe and NATO in an uncomfortable bind. Greenland governs itself, but Denmark controls defense. Denmark is in NATO. Greenland isn't. European leaders are defending sovereignty, but there's still no clear strategy if Washington pushes further. Here's the situation.
Right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not.
Fresh from a bold military operation in Venezuela, Donald Trump has turned his focus north toward Greenland.
Right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not.
Rhetoric has hardened, European capitals are alarmed, and Denmark now faces an unthinkable question. Could it stop U.S. forces if Trump moves to seize the Arctic island by force? Here's the uncomfortable truth. There's almost nothing legally stopping Washington from expanding its military footprint in Greenland overnight. A little-known 1951 Cold War agreement already grants the U.S. sweeping access. With Denmark's consent, historically given, the U.S. can build bases, deploy troops, and operate freely. The U.S. currently maintains more than 100 personnel at Patuxent Space Base. Under existing agreements, Trump wouldn't need an invasion, just a surge. Troops, aircraft, and logistics could arrive legally, rapidly, and in overwhelming numbers. Denmark is taking the threat seriously. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has confirmed that Danish troops operate under a 1952 directive: shoot first, ask questions later if Greenland is attacked, even by an ally. But reality is brutal. Denmark ranks 45th globally in military power. It has just 17,300 total personnel, one of NATO's smallest forces. The U.S. alone fields 1.3 million active troops. Danish army has roughly 8,000 soldiers. Its navy operates 9 frigates, no submarines. This force is designed for patrol and deterrence, not stopping a superpower. Denmark's Air Force fields about 118 aircraft. Its combat fleet includes 26 aging F-16s and 21 F-35s, ironically bought from the United States. During Operation Absolute Resolve, the U.S. deployed more aircraft than Denmark owns. Greenland sits nearly 3,000 kilometers from Denmark's mainland. Rapid reinforcement is a nightmare. Meanwhile, U.S. airlift and naval power could dominate the island within hours. Trump insists Greenland is vital for national security. Behind the rhetoric lies strategy: missile defense, Arctic sea lanes, and early warning systems linking Europe and North America. Then there's resources. Greenland holds vast deposits of rare earths and critical minerals, essential for EVs, weapons, and tech. Trump wants independence from Chinese supply chains.
We don't do it. Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
Can Denmark really stop the U.S.? In blunt terms, no. Denmark could resist symbolically. It could trigger a political earthquake inside NATO, but militarily, the balance is overwhelming. A U.S. move on Greenland would fracture NATO, shock Europe, and redefine alliances. Denmark can threaten, posture, and prepare, but numbers don't lie. If Trump decides Greenland is non-negotiable, the question isn't can Denmark defend it, it's whether the world can stop what comes next.
Iran is warning of retaliation if attacked by the United States, even as its own streets descend into violence. So far, hundreds have been killed in the crackdown on protesters. Live ammunition, bodies removed in trucks, and morgues filled up. Verified numbers suggest nearly 500 protesters dead, tens of thousands detained. This is what we know so far.
Iran has issued one of its strongest warnings yet to the United States. While saying negotiations are still possible, Tehran is making it very clear. Iran says it is fully prepared for war. With protests raging inside the country and military threats rising from Washington, the question now is, are we heading toward another major conflict in the Middle East? Speaking to foreign ambassadors in Tehran, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi delivered a powerful message broadcast on state television. He said Iran does not want war, but warned that the country is ready to defend itself if necessary. the Islamic Republic of Iran is not seeking war, but is fully prepared for war. Arakchi also said Iran remains open to negotiations with the United States, but only if talks are based on mutual respect, equal rights, and fairness. In short, Iran says diplomacy is possible, but it will not accept threats or pressure. These comments come after U.S. President Donald Trump signaled a tougher stance toward Tehran. Trump said his administration is closely monitoring the situation and is considering what he called very strong options. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump revealed that the U.S. military is actively reviewing the situation and that he's receiving hourly reports on developments inside Iran. However, Trump stopped short of saying when or how the United States might act.
There seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination. Iran called to negotiate. Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called, they want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States.
Can you share any details on that call?
Iran wants to negotiate, yes.
Negotiate what?
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting.
Right.
But a meeting is being set up. Iran called, they want to negotiate. Thank you very much, everybody.
Meanwhile, Iran has been rocked by widespread protests since late December, driven by economic hardship and public frustration. A US-based human rights group claims that nearly 500 protesters have been killed, dozens of security personnel have died, and more than 10,000 people have been arrested. Iranian officials reject foreign reports and accuse outside forces of fueling the unrest. Iran's foreign ministry describes the situation as a terrorist war against the Iranian people and claims armed foreign elements are targeting civilians. Tensions are even higher because of what happened last year. In June, the United States carried out airstrikes on 3 major Iranian nuclear facilities, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, during a brief but intense Iran-Israel conflict. That operation pushed U.S.-Iran relations to one of their lowest points in years. Now, with fresh warnings on both sides, fears of escalation are growing once again. Despite the harsh rhetoric, Iran says communication channels with the United States are still open, including indirect talks through Switzerland. Iranian officials insist they remain committed to diplomacy, but only if negotiations are not one-sided or dictated by Washington. At the same time, Trump says he's exploring ways to restore internet access in Iran, adding another layer of complexity to an already tense situation. So here's where things stand. Iran says it's ready for talks, but it's also ready for war. The United States is watching closely and weighing its next move. Will diplomacy calm the situation, or is the region heading toward another dangerous showdown?
China has issued a clear warning, opposing any use of threat or force against Iran. The statement comes after Donald Trump said his administration is considering very strong options, including military action. Beijing says it hopes Iran can overcome the crisis internally and maintain stability, a sign that any escalation could widen rapidly. Here's China's position.
Iran is burning. Protests have spread to every province. People are facing water shortages, economic hardships, and a government trying to hold on by force. And now, the United States is threatening action, while China warns against foreign interference. This isn't just a story about Iran. It's a story about global power, strategy, and what happens when allies and enemies collide. China's foreign ministry made it clear on January 12, 2026, we always oppose interference in other countries' internal affairs. For China, this is consistent policy: protect sovereignty, support allies like Iran, and push back against what it sees as U.S. hegemony. Germany and other nations are condemning violence against protesters, but China's message is simple: keep your hands off. The protests themselves are massive. Starting in late December 2025, they've swept through all 31 provinces of Iran. People are demanding basic things: water, jobs, freedom. But the response has been harsh. Internet shutdowns, communication blackouts, and according to human rights groups, over 500 dead, including children. The numbers may be higher. It's impossible to verify under the blackout. President Trump warned Iran, continue using lethal force, and the U.S. could respond at levels they've never been hit before. Options on the table include military strikes, cyber attacks, and sanctions targeting Iran's energy and regime figures. Trump frames it as support for freedom and protesters, but Iran sees it as a direct threat. Iranian officials have responded with warnings of their own. Parliament has declared U.S. bases, ships, and Israel legitimate targets if attacked. The government frames the protests as foreign orchestrated, possibly to justify the crackdown and present themselves as defending the nation.
You must be very careful that the advice they are giving you for an attack on Iran is not the same kind of counsel as when you claimed Mashhad had already fallen. Therefore, to ensure you do not fall victim to any grave miscalculation, understand this clearly. Should you proceed with an attack on Iran, both the occupied territories and all military centers and bases, and American ships in the region will be our legitimate targets, and with these explicit confessions you have made regarding your intention of military aggression against Iran, within the established framework of legitimate self-defense, we do not intend to restrict our capabilities to merely responding after an aggressive action has already been initiated against us. Instead, our approach will be to take decisive action based upon clear and objective indication of an impending threat. It was necessary for me to tell you and all your allies in the region this: do not make a miscalculation, because regret will not bring you any benefit.
Iran and China are close. Iran sells oil to China, provides land routes to Europe, and serves as a strategic partner in the Middle East. For China, Iran isn't just a country, it's a link in a global strategy: energy, trade, and influence. Experts warn, if the US or Israel strikes, Iran could hit back, potentially dragging in Russia and China. This isn't hypothetical. World powers are already watching, and Iran could become a flashpoint for a much larger conflict. So here's where we are. Protesters fight for freedom. Governments plot strategy, and superpowers jostle for influence. Iran isn't just a map point. It's a living, breathing story of power, risk, and what happens when local struggles meet global ambitions.
Facing more than 2 weeks of nationwide protests, Iran clerical leadership has gone on the offensive. State-organized rallies were held across the country, branded as national solidarity and honor. Chants targeted the United States and Israel. Pro-regime media claimed massive participation, but critics say the objective is clear: to delegitimize dissent and paint protesters as foreign agents. Here's how Tehran is trying to regain control.
Iran is staging pro-regime rallies to counter bloody pro-protests.
But this isn't just about flags and speeches. It's part of a much deeper struggle happening right now in the heart of the Middle East. Over the past 2 weeks, what began as popular anger over Iran's collapsing economy and inflation has turned into one of the biggest domestic crises the country has faced in years. The government has responded with a mix of heavy-handed repression and carefully choreographed displays of unity. And that's exactly where these rallies fit in. State-organized, massive demonstrations meant to show that the regime still has legs, still has support, and still controls the narrative. These chants aren't just political slogans. They're broadcast over state TV in Tehran and played on loop to counter footage of unrest bubbling beneath the surface. But let's take a step back. This all began in late December with a relatively small protest over everyday frustrations, soaring food prices, a collapse in the value of the Iranian currency, and growing economic hardship for ordinary people. What started with shopkeepers and bazaar traders quickly spread across cities and provinces, morphing into calls for not just economic relief, but political change. And as these protests grew, so did the government's response. Security forces cracked down, arrests surged into the tens of thousands, and according to well-sourced human rights monitors, hundreds, possibly more than 500 people have died, a stark indicator of how violent the confrontation has become. Internet access inside Iran was shut off in early January, a near-total blackout that dropped connectivity to almost nothing and made it drastically harder for people inside the country to communicate or for the world to see what's happening on the ground. This blackout wasn't accidental. It's a classic authoritarian play. Cut the digital lifeline so that photos, videos, and eyewitness testimony can't flow out while the state's version of events flows in. Meanwhile, from Tehran's corridors of power, officials are trying to reframe the narrative. They claim that foreign interference, especially from the United States and Israel, is behind the unrest. They urge citizens to rally behind the Islamic Republic, calling these protests not expressions of public anger, but acts of sedition and instability. Foreign leaders, meanwhile, are watching closely. The U.S. says Iran has even expressed an interest in reopening diplomatic talks, perhaps to defuse the crisis, while simultaneously warning Tehran against further bloodshed. Back on the streets, despite internet blackouts and harsh repression, Iranians continue to protest, to raise their voices, and to challenge the narrative being spun by their government. The protests haven't fizzled out. They've spread deeper and wider than many expected. So, when you hear about pro-regime rallies, don't see them as a simple show of support. See them as part of a broader fight over control of Iran's story, and for many inside the country, over the future of the country itself. This is more than just politics. It's a moment that could shape the direction of Iran for years, maybe decades to come.
From contested claims of power to frozen frontiers to streets witnessing protests, seems to be the case of a world edging towards confrontation with fewer guardrails than before. That's world news for you. Good night.